Be the Talk, episode 356, featuring Michael Alcee. Welcome to Be the Talk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Dr. Michael Alcee. Michael, are you ready to talk?
Ready to go.
Michael Alcee, Ph.D., is a clinical psychologist who specializes in college counseling and in educating the public about the transformative power of psychotherapy. He currently works in private practice in Tarrytown, New York, as adjunct professor at William Patterson University and mental health coordinator, a job that definitely is needed at the Manhattan School of Music. Michael Alcee, welcome to the talk.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Nathan.
Now, that was a little bit of a joke because at Talk Universe, you may know that I went to a rival music conservatory, top tier, just like Manhattan. This is so cool to be talking. Oh, my gosh. Oh, this is going to be a lot of fun. So we are actually going to stick to the script in terms of this is related to Michael's TEDx talk, Introverts, College, and the Mind, Solving Our Mental Health Crisis from the Inside Out. I have a feeling we're going to delve into some other things, maybe in some other segments, but we're going to focus on that in this one. I love, Michael, you come out and you say nothing unites the introverts like a meme. And so you have this brilliant poster that you create, like something that we would see on Instagram, a word gram, introverts unite occasionally in small groups for very limited periods of time. It's what the sign said. Michael, please take us behind the talk.
Yeah, so I found that meme online and I started plastering around the campus, and I got not only laughs, but I got all of this kind of interest for this new group that I was creating that all of my colleagues were somewhat laughing at me about. And I was thinking, you know what? It was like Field of Dreams. I put out this crazy idea and all these folks started to show, and we had the most interesting conversations. And I discovered that there is a whole segment of the college population that are introverted and are anxious and are depressed and are socially disconnected because they don't know how they work. And I also realized that so many of us in this very busy and frenetic world, this hyper-connected world, don't always know how to take time for just being and how to relax, how to connect, how to steep in the world of ideas and the imagination. So as a psychologist, I thought this is a new and interesting place that I can open things up. And that's where it all began.
This has been a really fun day in Be the Talk, and those of you that have seen our live stream from time to time know that I batch these interviews, and I do upwards of up to 10 interviews in a row in the morning, and we've had an extroverted interview about how to connect with people and kind of cut through all the chit-chat that none of us like, which was actually really interesting. Then we talked with another introvert whose talk was on introversion. And during that time, I had a personal epiphany that really goes right with what Michael is talking about right now. I always thought this was me. I always thought there was something wrong with me, that I don't speak up enough, or when I do, I share like 18 levels of depth in 18 times longer than it needs to be said. And I thought that this was all me. But, and some of it might be a little bit me, but it's really general to what is common to all of us as introverts. We're all kind of have that insecurity in some way. And what you did, Michael, on your campus is you provided not just, I mean, it's kind of a joke sometimes with certain people to talk about safe spaces or whatever, but in the best sense of the word, you created that place that would be safe for all of us to actually become extroverted, because it's like when we know that we all have that, I'll just be literary and a little loquacious here and call it a tragic flaw, which it's not a flaw. But when we all see other people that struggle in the world and see the world in a kind of a similar way and have similar challenges, ironically, it's the ultimate icebreaker, and we can connect with other people. So take us to kind of the end of the story behind the talk and how you united all of these people and created a world where introverts could belong.
Well, it was wonderful because what I found is, like you said, that people inherently want to connect from the inside out, and they also want to get out there and express themselves, whether you're introverted or extroverted or ambivert, and somebody who is both. I think that the really more interesting piece for me is that we're all these kind of integrated systems, right? We all are both internal and external. We're always negotiating that and trying to find something interesting and creative in the balance between the two. And so when we can connect with that, we can be fully alive, fully creative, fully connected, and really get curious and interested in each other. And so I was really intrigued by how much folks were like, wow, now there's another platform for me to talk about this. And I think what you said too before is I used to think I was crazy or there was something wrong with me. And I like to think of it more like, how do you fuel up, right? So if you're an introvert, you tend to fuel up because you're like an electric car. You need to go home for a charging station or the few charging stations that are out there. But if you're an extrovert, there's usually a gas station around the corner. A lot of our culture is set up for extroverts. But most of us really are hybrids. And it's just making sure that we're fueled up in all the right ways. And that's what makes things really, really fun. That's where we really get to play and come alive. And I thought, what better way to think about mental health than to think about energy? We often think about problems first, disorders first. Oh my God, there's a crisis with college students who are suffering, who are suicidal, and all these things. And it's true. But often those are the effects of not tending to the sort of machinery that we're all made of.
Well,
right? We're sophisticated emotion regulation machines.
I love the human-centered, strength-based approach that you're using, because you focus on problems, you focus on deficiencies, you're going to get what you find. If that movie, that wonderful movie that people make fun of, The Secret, teaches us anything, it's that we find what we seek and we find what we focus on. And so, having that strength-based, human, whole person approach is absolutely huge.
And as a musician, as pianists, both of us are pianists. And as you know, we both try and learn our technique and really make sure that we have our repertoire, but then we also link that with our emotional expressivity and surrendering to the bigger music. So we're connecting our right logical left brain centers with our left brain centers, right, with our right emotional dreamlike associative ones. And so we're always going between inside and out and trying to create a third that is integrating. And I think introverts and extroverts are the yin and yang of our culture. And we all are trying to figure out how to blend those. Carl Jung said something really fascinating. He said there are no pure introverts and extroverts. Any of those would be found in the lunatic asylum. So the goal is not to be pure, but the goal is to know what your leaning is or preference is and to work with that and to strengthen the side that is underdeveloped. And insofar as you can become a better player, just as you want to become a better musician to create more and interesting music, whether you're playing solo or whether you're playing with a group. That's what it's all about.
Well, to take this even further, so since we're talking about classical music, the big thing in classical music is not, once you have the chops and can play all the things, it's not about you interloping yourself into the music and doing whatever you want. It's about understanding the style and the taste and the context and the intent of the composer and bringing that composer to life, as opposed to just kind of being a rock star and doing whatever you want just because you can. And so where I'm going to connect that with what I learned in several interviews today is this idea of being contextually and socially aware, and in business meetings or in group meetings or things like that, knowing ourselves enough and our tendencies enough to be able to quickly prepare in advance little statements like, hey, I'm an introvert, so I'm going to need to process this more. And if you like, I'll tell you what I think later, which will be, higher value, but I'll tell you, answer your question on the surface right now. Little statements like that can let people know and kind of signal to people that there's a lot more, but that you're willing to play by the rules. I think things like that, if I had learned how to do that a little earlier in life, would have had a real difference. And fortunately, I'm going to learn how to do that now in life and bring that into the future. But in a college situation, in a music conservatory situation, do you see those dynamics play out?
Yeah, and I think you said it really well. I think life is an ever increasing and sophisticated game of improvisation. And somebody like a good jazz musician or even a classical musician has had preparation, but they're also open to the spontaneous moment. And that whatever situation we're in, whether it's in class or whether in a job interview or in a romantic relationship or in a family relationship, we're constantly trying to figure out, what are we working with on the other side and what are we bringing to the table and how do we make something artful out of this mix? So it really takes being not only aware, but having some experience, right? And also being, I like to think of it as developing a certain kind of range of possibility, right? So a really good musician can play a range of different genres or composers, and depending on who he's working with, try to bring out different aspects of that. And really so Duke Ellington was a genius because what he did is he wrote music that highlighted every instrumentalist in his band. In fact, he listened so much that he took an exercise that a trumpeter was playing and turned it into Do Nothing Till You Hear From Me. Or then he took something that his trombonist, Juan Tizol, was playing and made it into Caravan. And then he had the genius to say, Billy Strayhorn, why don't you write me a tune? And that became Take the A Train. And most people don't realize that so much of the genius of Ellington was knowing what he was working with and in conducting that, but also being a part of it. That's when life really becomes interesting. And that's when we become artists in our personal lives, not just artists on the bandstand.
I love it. Well, we've been enjoying this conversation with Michael Alcee. His talk is called Introverts, College, and the Mind, Solving Our Mental Health Crisis from the Inside Out. And we're going to be right back with Dr. Michael Alcee in just a moment for the Blitz Round. Hey, Talk Universe. I hope you've been enjoying today's episode with today's guest. But you know what? Many people want more than that. Many people that listen to Be the Talk actually want to give a talk. And if that's you, you're not alone. Listen to the rest of this podcast. At the end, I'll have a free resource for you just for listening. And we're back with Dr. Michael Alcee. His talk is called Introverts, College, and the Mind, Solving Our Mental Crisis from the Inside Out. And it is time for the Blitz Round, where I ask him a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of his talk. Michael, are you ready?
Ready to go.
Were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I applied and applied and applied.
You too, huh? It's kind of like music school.
Exactly.
We're used to that. So what advice do you have in helping other people who want to get accepted also?
Well, I think, the greatest thing was that somebody told me when I did a conference that they thought I should do a TED Talk, which gave me the inspiration. But then some of the hard work was getting out there and seeing what was the right fit for me. So the biggest piece of advice that I'd give is to trust that you have something to offer and find formal or informal mentors who can help you really develop that and distill that and use that process to craft the talk. Just as every good writer, musician, actor works with their mentors to keep on strengthening, that's what you ought to be doing to create a talk. And then it becomes this joint work that you're excited about. I think the mentoring process is so strong. The community in TED is so powerful. And to really, really get to savor in that and also use that as a launching pad. Because a TED Talk isn't really about you. It's about us, and it's about what we all can do and inspire together. And so you're kind of always going back and forth between what's my little piece, but how does it fit to the bigger? That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, in terms of how you prepared, were you a memorizer? Were you an improviser? Were you a blender?
I was a total blender. I had tried to memorize a lot in the beginning, and then I was too stilted. And so then I tried to get certain big pieces, and then I would riff off of that. And then in the end, the things that I riffed off of, I incorporated into a bigger script. And so I was mostly blending, and I like to think of the TEDx talk as, a poem masquerading as a conversation. you really want to know exactly where you're going, but you also want to enjoy, like a musician who's practiced enough that when you're in the moment of the performance, that you are enjoying every bit of it. It's a Zen balance.
Well, it sure is. What's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you get there?
In terms of doing the talk?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I think one of the biggest things for me is taking your idea and bringing it down to 1 to 3 points and distilling it like a poem. Because you might have 5 talks, but what you want to do is find the one talk and find the real stories that connect to it and the main message as if it's the turn of a poem. The poem or sonnet works in moving you towards one fantastic and surprising conclusion. You can write a whole collection of sonnets, but your TED Talk is one sonnet.
Michael, what was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
The funniest thing was I was in the middle of my talk, and all of a sudden I can see my mother-in-law standing up, like taking a picture of me like I was back in grade school. And the juxtaposition of being in this like otherworldly, surreal place of being on the TED stage and having like the mom in the audience like you were in kindergarten again. And for me, I almost lost my lines because I was like, this can't be real on so many levels. And I think that's the wonderful thing about doing a TED Talk. You both feel like both an expert and an excited, idealistic beginner.
Well, we've been enjoying the Blitz round with Dr. Michael Alcee. The time has gone very, very, very fast. His talk is called Introverts, College in the Mind, Solving Our Mental Health Crisis from the Inside Out. And you can go to our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com. We will have a link to his talk, and you'll be able to see his Introverts Unite with the fist sign on there. We will also have a link to his website, drmichaelalcee.com, Dr. Michael Alcee, ALCEE.com, as well as his LinkedIn profile so that you can connect with Dr. Michael. And we'll be back in just a moment for the final word of advice. Hey, Talk Universe, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you want to give the talk to change the world, but you don't know how or even where to start, no problem at all. Go to BeTheTalk.com/get accepted for my new 5-day email course that'll show you how. Absolutely free. Just go to BeTheTalk.com/get accepted. And we're back with Michael Alcee. It is time for the final word of advice.
Final word of advice. I think the final word of advice is to never forget the integration of art and science. There really is no distinction or contradiction between the two. I think our goal as speakers, our goal in whatever we do professionally is to unite and blend those. Just as a great musician, just as a great writer, just as a great artist, that when we do that, we bring the kind of joy and transcendence that is possible. And I think that's what really makes the difference.
Michael Alcee, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Be the Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.